Hello, everyone, and we are live. What's up? I see. Yeah, I realized. The last podcast of the year, and I screw up the intro. I usually start with "We are live." Hello, everyone,
Hey,
and
changing it up. It's all good.
hello, everyone first. So I don't know. I was so excited to get going and talking about the Survivor 44 finale that we're about to recap that I just completely screwed up my normal intro. So I'll get restarted real quickly here. And we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soul Survivor podcast for the last time this season, Survivor 44 finale recap. What's up, Ryan? How are you doing? And, I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
Dylan, a happy finale to you as well. It's always bittersweet. I mean, we always love recapping a Survivor season, recapping the finale. It always goes so fast, and it feels like we wait months and months and forever for a new season, and then the season itself just flies by. But no, I'm very excited to be here with you today, talk about the finale of Survivor 44, and just get into everything about the winner, about the season as a whole. Lots to break down.
Yeah. There's so much to talk about. Wish we could have got to this a few days sooner, but because of my work trip, we couldn't. But still excited to be here. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, we had Jam Jam taking home the win in Survivor 44. So although I predicted his what would be his downfall, I was wrong, and he ends up getting the win. So congratulations to him. I think let's start off there, right? So we usually start off with the vote out. Let's start off with the who ends up winning the season, which is Jam Jam. I think ultimately I could say that, in my opinion, and I think most people agree, is that I believe that Jam Jam is the best winner of the new era so far. And then I would probably say he's like a mid-tier winner compared to like all the rest of the seasons. I think that, the hints were kind of there throughout the season, and we spoke about it, that this was a possibility. Is like he kind of got the edit of the person who had, was instrumental in basically voting everybody out of the game. If they went for Jam Jam, he voted them out. And that's kind of how it went until it was too late. And, they had one last chance to get, and we could get into this, but they had one last chance to get Jam Jam out at Final 5. And ultimately, his social game was good enough to get him past that point. And then, even, on a more impressive scale, Jam Jam gets to the final 3 by not even having to do fire making, which continues the trend of, I believe, all 4 seasons. Oh, no, not 43, but 42 and 41. The player who won, Erica and Marianne, were just taken to fire. And that's the same thing that happened in season 44. 43, Gabler went into fire in order to beat Jesse. But, 44 happens the same way that 41 and 42 did, as the winner gets taken to final tribal council, final 3, instead of having to go to fire. So thought that was, an interesting tidbit. I did not think it was going to happen that way, especially that everybody, Jam Jam's name had been on the block basically the entire season. I'm pretty surprised that ended up happening. Granted, it happened because Heidi wanted to go to fire herself to boost her resume, so it was a little bit unconventional in that way. But yeah, I'm excited to hear what you think, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very happy for Jam Jam. Obviously, we've been saying all season, this has been Tika's season, the Three Stooges. Very happy for him. He seems like a really great and fun person in real life, and I think he was a pretty great player. I agree with you. Like we were texting, of the new era, probably the best, because not only do I think he had a really great social game, probably I think one of the best social players we've ever seen, honestly, thinking about it. But, also just the fact that we were able to see his game. Obviously, we've kind of gone on a whole tangent about, not seeing Erica's game, not really seeing Gabler's game and understanding why they won. And then Marianne, obviously, we saw a bit more of her, but really that was more towards the back half of the season, whereas Jam Jam was always really like in our vision the whole time, and we understood how he got there and how he won. So again, like I said, social game, I really feel like, other than maybe Michelle Fitzgerald and a couple other really great social players that you can talk about, or even social winners, he had one of the best, I really feel like, especially, and that comes out in the exit press. I mean, from hearing Jamie and Heidi and Lauren, and granted, we felt like Jam Jam was close with the Tika 3, but he was like friendly with everyone else. I think we underestimated how much how close he was with like Jamie and Lauren. Like they really loved him. I think Lauren said in her exit press, like when she got there, she was never going to vote for anyone but Jam Jam. So he really had the social game on lock. And like you said, he also played a pretty great, cerebral strategic game in terms of like, if you vote for me, you go home. He was on the block a couple times, but he was able to get his name off the block as well. And he played the middle with Carson and Carolyn. So obviously the jury saw Carson as probably the main player to win there, but I have no qualms whatsoever with Jam Jam being our winner.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I said that I think he is a mid-tier winner, again, we're judging over 44 seasons, so I'd probably put him like an upper mid-tier type, and I do think that he was fully deserving of winning this season, and he was the best player on the season, as simple as that. And he's a good winner, so good for Jam Jam. Very very happy for him. And yeah, there is a lot more though to get into here with the other five, and I think this is kind of the elephant in the room that we haven't addressed yet. But Carolyn ends up being the 0 vote finalist in this season, which I could tell you I did not expect, and I think a lot of people didn't expect it. Something about this finale did not feel complete, and I feel like this may have been why. I'm complete again. Jam Jam deserved to win the game. Survivor 44. Him winning over Carolyn is completely fine. Like I'm completely fine with that. But like, given everything that we saw of Carolyn's game, I think it's weird that Heidi ends up getting second place over her. I feel like, right? It's just like it doesn't feel like right almost. Granted, I understand it from the point that like, all right, well. There's Jam Jam sitting up there and Carolyn, who were basically aligned the entire time. So people may have just figured like, all right, if I'm going to vote for Tika, I'm voting for Jam Jam. And then it just went 7-1 with Danny just throwing the stray vote on Heidi because he liked her bold move or whatever, which I mean, all I'm going to say is that it's nice to have jury members like that. So it wasn't like a complete 8-0, but I think there is something to discuss in terms of 4 7-1 votes at final tribal council in a row this new era season. I think a lot of it has to do with the new format. A lot of it probably has to do with groupthink. But yeah, to me it was like a little bit of like a disappointment for me, and I know for a lot of other people is like, again, second place, third place. At the end of the day, who really cares? Like people care about the winner of the season, but it was just like it felt like almost like not parallel to the story that we had been being told the entire time. And I think that a lot of it had to do with what happened at final tribal council. Like I don't think that her game, like I think people really liked Carolyn. I don't think her game was necessarily respected the way that we were respecting it on our podcast and the way that other people on other podcasts were respecting it as well. Sorry about that. So yeah, I was shocked to say the least. I'm curious to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think all of us, myself included, were very shocked Carolyn got no votes. I feel like I went into the finale. I was texting you. I was texting other. Well, actually, I wasn't texting you because you weren't going to watch live. But I was texting other people, and my prediction for the whole finale and for the last couple of weeks was like, I want Carolyn to win, but I think it's going to be Jam Jam. And even as Jeff went to get the votes, I was like, I think Jam Jam has still got it. Yes, Heidi made a pretty ballsy move that we'll talk about, but Jam Jam, I think, has still got this. But I think, Heidi might get Danny's vote. Maybe she'll scrape one more. I think Carolyn has Franny's vote. Maybe Matt will vote with Franny for Carolyn. I was thinking maybe 6-1-1. I was thinking maybe a 5-2-1. Granted, I should have thought in the new era, 7-1-0 again. We can go into a whole bit about the final tribal format and how things need to change and the whole thing that contributes to groupthink. But I just really felt like Carolyn deserved a vote. I really do. And I think the internet agrees. And I think that just goes back to the whole story of the season where she just was really underestimated. And I don't think she got the respect from the jurors. They just felt like she was a bit of a character out there. And yes, maybe she had an idol play, but she really wasn't someone that had a lot of agency in the game. And I think that's completely not true. I think Carolyn played a pretty creative game. Carolyn's someone who used emotions, but she said, I was able to be an emotional player while also being a strategic player. And, I was doing a lot to make moves, and I was part of the Tika 3 that rode the middle, and I had really good reads on the game. Like, I always knew what was going on, other than maybe the Franny vote. And again, I don't want to rank and compare things, but I really feel like with the edit that she got, because Jam Jam and Carolyn were the stars of the season, but this almost felt like Carolyn's season. And if we ever do a tier list or ranking of people to come back, she's easily at the top of the list. I really feel like Carolyn, and you can tell me if this is hyperbole, Dylan, but is she one of the best zero vote finalists we've ever had? Now, obviously, I'm not saying someone like, I don't know, like Gavin or Parvati, no, someone who got second but got votes. I'm saying a zero vote finalist. She's got to be one of the best. And I'm even going to put the edit aside and say she did play a pretty good game for a zero vote finalist. I feel like you can put Fishback up there. You can put Michelle and Winners at War up there. But how many other zero vote finalists had the agency that Carolyn had, and also had good reads while also being a great emotional player as well?
So that's an interesting point. I think I agree. I agree for sure. I'm gonna have to get water in a second. Let me run to get water right now. I'll be back in like a second if you want to just hold down for a couple.
So I'll explain it a bit farther. So basically, when you think about zero vote finalists, you think about people who just get raked over the coals by the jury, and I think even Carolyn, even though Danny was questioning her a little bit, I don't think she was ever raked over the coals. I feel like the jury they were mainly focusing on Carson. Sorry, they're mainly focusing on Heidi and Jam Jam, and maybe Danny was questioning her idol play and something like that. But I do feel like the jury, even Franny, was giving Carolyn a lot of flowers for her emotional play. So I feel like compared to other zero vote finalists, where the jury was dragging Sherry, they were dragging Angelina, they were dragging Troyzan, she didn't get, or Nora, she didn't get the disrespect that the other zero vote finalists got. People did respect her. I just think when you're sitting next to Jam Jam, or if she was sitting next to Carson, she would have lost too. I just feel like she just wasn't able to get the respect that she probably deserves. I think Jam Jam was the deserving winner, but I feel like zero votes does not summarize how Carolyn's game was.
Yeah. So ultimately, I would agree with what you're saying about maybe one of the best zero vote finalists ever. And you bring up somebody like Michelle Winners at War. To me, it's like Carolyn was on the right side of the votes basically the entire game, whereas Michelle was fighting for her life in that game, not really in the know. So yeah. I would rank Carolyn's game in this season greater than Michelle's Winner at War game, So I agree with you. I think it's one of the best zero vote finalist games that we've ever seen. I think that ultimately, they just, I think, and she admitted this, she did not do what she needed to do at Final Tribal Council to possibly sway some of the votes. And again, we saw a little bit out of her. We saw that, I thought some of her answers were good, but I don't think she was as aggressive as she needed to be. If you remember last season, and this is kind of a weird comparison, but it's it's just fresh in my mind. But if you remember last season, Gabler comes into Final Tribal Council and he was guns a-blazing, I was hiding in plain sight. This is what I was doing. It's she explained, her game to them, but not in the as aggressive a type of way that she should have in order to sway some of the votes. I think she needed to, there was some stuff that I would have wanted to hear that she kind of just passed up on. We didn't hear a lot. We heard about her emotions and stuff. I would have liked for her to drill more about how intentional that was in, advancing her past certain votes. And maybe she did talk about that a little bit and it got cut out. But if you read the exit interviews, which I've had the chance to, read through a bunch since Wednesday, she basically said that she's admitting that she did a poor job at Final Tribal Council. She said that it was very hard. She said, she watched it back and she wishes she could have done better. But she said that she was very intimidated by the jury, and didn't perform as the way she wanted to. So I think that definitely played a big role in her getting zero votes. And I think that if she does come back, which I would predict that she definitely does, and she does get to that point again, let's say, then I think that it will be something that she's learned from the first time around. But yeah, I in terms of the zero vote finalist argument, I would say that she's for sure up there, if not top 2, top 3 zero vote finalist games. So obviously don't need to say even more how impressed we were with Carolyn this season because you said it a million times.
Yeah, I feel like if she ever did come back, I feel like people might see her more as a threat, but at least she's cleared one hurdle. She no longer has to worry about people being like, I mean, Carolyn's not really a player because now everyone that has seen the show, whether she comes back on like a full returning season or a half returning season, people now know Carolyn's name. They know she's an emotional player, but she has really good reads and they may want to work with her. And granted that she may get a bit more targeted in the early game and she has to kind of survive those votes. But to your point, Dylan, if she gets to the end, let's just say she happens to get there again, if she can do a better job at articulating her game, she no longer has to worry about people, discounting her. She's going to have a leg up there. And yeah, and I think that's why we always talk about Final Tribal performance. We always talk about Todd's performance along with a few others. I think Jam Jam had a really good performance himself. Like, you have to own your game. You have to be upfront with what you did, and you have to really answer the question that is being presented to you. And if you can do a great Final Tribal performance, that can really win you the game. And I feel like she would learn from that. But I think that just proves even more why Jam Jam had a great performance. It sounds like if Carson was there, he would have beat Jam Jam regardless either way. But Jam Jam, and I think we said this in our recap last week, that if Jam Jam got there with anyone but Carson, I think Jam Jam had it. He just did a really great job. I mean, Dylan, you saw how many times he made the jury laugh. Like at first I thought like, okay, maybe he's just being a little too goofy, but the way they just made him consistently laugh just shows you the power of his social game. And we saw his social game actually in a couple other instances this finale as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, his social game was elite. There's no denying that. I mean, if you looked at what happened when it was time for Carson to make fire, I mean, I think they showed that for a reason. It was on display right there. And after that, something like that happens, it was tough for me to believe that Carson was going to vote for anybody else than Jam Jam.
Yeah.
It just like, it wouldn't have felt right almost if he had voted for Carolyn, even though like him and Carolyn were very close. It was just like between him going up to Jam Jam last week and being like, you're my number one, between that moment, with the fire, it was like, you kind of got the sense that it was coming, that he was going to vote for Jam Jam. And then, if Carson's voting for Jam Jam, it's like, well, the guy who was involved in all the decision making is going to vote for Jam Jam. Like, maybe I should be voting for Jam Jam as well. So, groupthink plays a role there. But yeah, I mean, Jam Jam's social game was absolutely unreal. But let's get to I want to rewind it and kind of take through some steps of the finale here. And let's rewind to Final Five, which, as I said to you, there was a chance here to get rid of Jam Jam, and he kind of escapes. I'm curious. Here's what I've been kind of wondering the entire time. Based on what you saw the rest of the episode, if Carolyn flips and votes out Jam Jam at the Final Five, how do you think the season ends?
I almost wonder if it doesn't matter, because I thought the same thing. I was thinking, like, why did the three women, Heidi, Lauren, and Carolyn, why did they not vote out Jam Jam? Because Carson brings Jam Jam on the reward, and it really seems like they're really close, and Jam Jam's a big threat. But, I mean, Dylan, as we go through this first part of the episode, we're going to see that Lauren gets voted out by Heidi. And I almost wonder, like, the only way would that have worked is if the three women had got on the same page and said, we're going to vote Jam Jam, and we're going to kind of really make a stand here, take out Jam Jam, and hopefully get Carson out of fire, three women at the end, because we all have a good chance against each other. I mean, it wasn't like, I think I see your point, Dylan, if it was like 3-2. If it was 3-2 and Heidi and Lauren voted together against Jam Jam and the three Tika voted out Lauren, I would say to you, yes, I think Carolyn messed up. She should have flipped and taken out Jam Jam to give herself a better chance. But Dylan, it really seems like when we go back to this a few weeks ago, ever since Lauren and Jamie voted for Heidi at the Danny vote or whatever it was, they just have not been able to get on the same page. And I really feel like, yes, maybe Lauren and Heidi were testing the waters. They were seeing, would Carolyn be open to voting out Jam Jam? But as we see Heidi vote for Lauren here, I just really feel like those two are not able to get back on the same page, and it maybe wouldn't have even mattered, honestly.
Yeah. You're right about Heidi voting for Lauren herself. You know what I mean. If the women had got together and voted out,
but I agree with you. If it was a 3-2 vote and we said, okay, Should Carolyn have flipped on Tika and voted out Jam Jam? I think probably yes, because that maybe could have given her a better chance against Heidi and Lauren. Although I think Carolyn, unfortunately, still does not win against Heidi and Lauren. It seems like honestly from the edit that Lauren probably had a decent chance to win if she had gotten there.
Yeah, which is so weird because like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna rant about this while we're at the Final Five boot. First of all, I said I liked Lauren the entire season. I'm disappointed that we didn't see more of her. It was such a weird moment for. No, I don't mean a weird moment as in what she was saying. What she was saying was obviously amazing, but like it was a weird editing moment for them to give Lauren this like 3-minute speech of a send off. I was like, does this speech equal her confessional time for the rest of the season in this final speech? I was like, come on, like you can't like. I think a big issue with the way that the season's edited is like we all knew that Tika 3 was basically going all the way because it was just literally a season about the Tika 3. But how could you like barely edit Lauren and then have her give this whole speech and have, you know, all of a sudden people start saying, well, she's a huge jury threat. And like, yeah, we could tell that she's a big jury threat because all the Ratsus are on the jury. But like, you know, it's like, it's very weird that she had that whole story about being a single mom and, you know, this great speech at the end. And I'm like, where was this the whole season? Like, how could you not show more of that? How could you not show more of her throughout the season? She got all the way here to Final Five. But that's a rant for another day. I just thought that was just an interesting tidbit, considering we were saying that she was kind of under-edited the entire season. But yeah, I think people in the comments are making a decent point. I think Lauren could have potentially beat Carolyn at the end based on, I guess, based on the way that the outcome happened, right? She got 0 votes, Carolyn. And then based on the way that Lauren was being talked up as, oh, if she gets to the end, she'll, you know, Carson was pretty positive that she was going to be a major threat at the end. And I think it's because, you know, she played a solid game. She was very likable. And all of her former ally members that she'd seemingly become very close with were sitting right there on the jury. So I do think that Lauren maybe wins in that scenario if Jam Jam is voted out there. So it is interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, people are saying in the chat, because she has friends on the jury with, you know, with Kane, Jamie, and Brandon. And actually, even though her and Danny didn't start out, you know, clicking, seems like they actually kind of got closer as Danny got voted out. So she had some votes there. She won 2 immunities. And unfortunately, as we know, in the new era of Survivor, just lately in Survivor in general, people respect challenge wins. You know, I mean, I guess I would say maybe in the early days they respected challenges, but still, people do respect challenge wins more than they probably should. And obviously, Lauren has a really great story. She also had a good social game. I mean, she got no votes up until her vote out, so that really speaks volumes, especially how she started the game. And yeah, Dylan, I really feel like this was. I thought for a second we were going to get the Amanda Kimmel where we don't see her find the idol and then she whips it out at Tribal. Because she, like, the whole time she seemed very confident. Like Carson said, she wasn't talking to them after the challenge. She wasn't making a plea, but she was clearly on the bottom. So she must have something up her sleeve there. And then even at Tribal, when it opened up, she was like smiling a lot. And I'm like, oh, she has it. She has the idol for sure. And Jam Jam's going to be gone or something's going to happen. But then she gets into that 3-minute monologue and it's very emotional. I'm like, oh no, she's gone. Like, she doesn't have it. Like, I thought the whole time she had the idol, and then the minute she went into the whole segment and it was very like emotional, I'm like, no, she's gone. Like, there's no way she has it at this point.
I know I wasn't the only one screaming "look up" when she walked under the tree with the idol. I can't believe that idol wasn't found. They tried so hard. They tried so hard for the idol to be found at Final Five, but it just wasn't found. So I thought that was interesting.
I was wondering, like, if it wasn't found, why was it even in the show in the first place? I guess it was there for dramatic effect. Like, oh, is she going to find it? Can Lauren save herself with a last ditch effort? But in the end, we didn't really even need to see it because it played no real role, honestly.
Yeah, I think just like the whole storyline of the fact that like an idol was out there and people were looking for it. I mean, I guess it is important, right? Because like if an idol were to be found, obviously it changes everything. And we've seen stuff hidden at the Final Five the last 3 seasons. So I think it made sense for it to be in, but it is funny that it wasn't found after all that. Deep Survivor fans are rejoicing that there was no idol found at Final Five. But yeah,
Also, Deep Survivor fans are rejoicing because we saw the 3-1-1, which brings us back to like Triple H with Devin and Ben, because I love Carson and Jam. And I don't know if Jam Jam did this himself or if Carson and Jam Jam plotted to do it, but I love seeing Jam Jam throw the hinky vote onto Heidi in case Lauren has the idol, because that happened with Ben and Devin and Triple H, where, you know, everyone votes for Ben. Devin's like, he's probably going to vote for me. Let me throw a vote into Dr. Mike, and Dr. Mike goes home on the revote. So I love, again, I don't know whose move that was, but I love seeing a vote like that at Final Five. It's really cool.
Yeah. That was, well, it was Jam Jam through the stray vote, right, on Heidi.
Yeah, so Jam Jam threw the vote onto Heidi, and I wasn't sure if when Carson on the beach was like, if Lauren has the idol, should we vote for Heidi?
I see what you mean.
Yeah, should we vote for Heidi instead? But maybe they were like, instead of voting for Heidi, let's still vote out Lauren, but let's throw a stray vote onto Lauren just in case.
Yeah. No, it was, that was the right move. Yeah, that would have been wild if she pulled out an idol out of nowhere, but I was hoping for it, but doesn't happen. So Lauren goes at Final Five, and then we have Samotion. So quick rant here. I love Samotion. I don't love Samotion every other season. You know what I mean? I feel like, you know, it's a great I believe we had it season 42, right?
Yeah, so I pulled up the stats because I was talking to my other friend about this, and he also said the same thing as you, Dylan. He was like, I love Samotion. It's a classic challenge. It's fun at the end, but we've seen it now 7 times in Survivor, and we saw it in Tocantins. We didn't see it for a while, and now I can tell you for a fact, Dylan, we saw it as the final challenge in 44, 42, 40, and 37. So we've seen it like 4 times over the last 7 seasons, 3 times in the last 5. So I love it. I love Samotion, but you can't do it every other season. Like you got to just change it up to make it like some other type of focus or endurance or dexterity challenge, because like we've said a lot with the new era, if you keep repeating the same thing, it's going to get a bit tiresome, even though we love it.
Yeah. It was like, and it's funny because I was like, I wonder if Carson built the Samotion machine before. But anyway, yeah, I love Samotion. I don't love Samotion 3 times in 5 seasons or whatever. 3 times in 4 seasons. So 3 times in 5 seasons. 40, 42, and 40, as you said. So, yeah, and it's funny. As soon as I saw it, I was like, Heidi's winning. Carolyn.
I said the same thing, actually. Yeah.
Carolyn, definitely not. Jam Jam, I was like, I don't think that this is his type of challenge. And then Carson, I was like, he probably can't build Samotion. So even though I just did make that joke, he probably can't build Samotion. So I was like, by process of elimination, I was like, Heidi, who seems like very athletic and like kind of hand-eye coordinated, is like, not that the others aren't, but you like more so Heidi, even if she hadn't won an immunity challenge, it just seems like that was cut out for her. But yeah, she wins it. And then she just makes the announcement. She was like, I may put myself into fire. And then, everyone's practicing fire. We get the moment with Carson and Jam Jam. And this is where, I was like, oh, wow, like this is actually going to happen with Carson actually going to lose it. He's actually going to lose at fire. Yeah. I cannot believe. And it was so funny because I wanted to hear. I said on this podcast a few weeks ago, I was like, there is no way that this guy 3D printed every damn puzzle on the season, but is not going to be able to do fire at the end. I just did not believe it. And then we kind of heard it. I was wondering, how is this possible, right? And then he says, he's like, every time I practice at home, it was easy and I got it. But out here, it's like, too much pressure. I don't have confidence in myself. I can't do it. I thought that was so interesting because I was just waiting to hear, how is this guy not going to make fire after he 3D printed everything on the season, right? Plus, and now we'll move on to what the actual fire making competition is. Heidi puts herself into fire. She beats Gabler for the record in a Survivor season. So props to Heidi for that. And Carson ends up losing to somebody who breaks the record in Survivor Fire. Which is interesting because it seems like his fire probably would have gone not shortly after that. So Carson was having a very good fire making competition. He just happened to go against somebody who literally broke the record in fire. And I give props to Heidi for that move because it got her the 1 vote for sure. So even though there was basically no chance she was going to win, that did give her the best chance to win. So I do respect that move. I just, I don't want in the future, like I don't want that to be a swaying narrative for somebody winning the game. But given the given what the game is these days, it was the right move for her to do it because it was the only way she was going to get any votes.
Yeah, no, I agree with most of what you said. I have a lot of thoughts on this. And I mean, from the jump, when Heidi says, like, at the challenge, and even Jeff says it at Tribal, like, oh, I'm considering giving up my necklace and making fire, I feel like she's putting herself behind the 8 ball. Like, once you say that, you can't not do it, because then it just looks like you walked it back, and you don't have the chops to back it up. So I give Heidi full props and having the guts to do that, because I would never have the guts to do that. I know Dama Bate was like, if I did that, my wife would kill me. I could never do it. So I give her props for doing it, and not only doing it, she wrote a check that her mouth cashed. She made the fastest fire ever. So I give her a lot of credits. Like you said, though, I still hate Fire 4 fire making. I still don't like it as a twist. And I don't want to sound mean, I'm actually kind of happy that it didn't work out for her in terms of, like, she didn't win fire and make the game, because I agree with you completely. If Heidi made fire and won the game, and we had 2 seasons in a row of the fire maker winning the game and the jury respecting it, I got very scared, Dylan, that we could be heading to a Survivor future where it is expected that you make fire whether you win or lose. And I almost have like a nightmare about this, but like it could get to the point where Jeff says at Final Four immunity challenge, the winner of this challenge earns the right to win immunity and the right to put themselves into fire. Like, that would be the darkest timeline for Survivor, that you are expected to make the fire because it's seen as a great move. It's not a great move. Heidi did what she had to do. It just was unfortunately a little bit too late against Jam Jam. But yeah, I really feel like I have to give Heidi props here. And unfortunately, Dylan, it seems like it didn't matter either way. I will say the one quick parallel that I want to make is that it's pretty, and granted, I'm not comparing Rick Devens to Carson, but it's like they both were players that the jury felt like they were going to win if they got there. Chris Underwood had obviously a very different situation. He had to do everything he could in those final 5 days to win the game, but he takes out that final boss and he wins. Heidi takes out the quote-unquote final boss in Carson, and she doesn't win. I know there are 2 different situations with EOE and whatnot. Chris had time to make friends on the jury, but I find that a bit interesting that, Gabler makes fire, takes out Jesse, he wins. Chris does it with Devens, he wins. Heidi doesn't. Again, they're all different situations, but I thought that was a bit interesting. And unfortunately for her, it didn't matter for her either way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm happy that it didn't have that major an effect other than her getting 1 vote. But yeah. I think let's move on to talk about like the details of the final tribal council. And then we'll touch on the after show briefly. Like, there wasn't much to talk about there. And then we'll hit kind of questions and then like the future of, I guess, the show to end it. But Final Tribal Council, I saw a lot of people saying that this was maybe one of the worst Final Tribal Councils that we ever had.
It's so boring. It's so boring now.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's not like I remember, watching older seasons, and you used to be so excited for a certain person to come up and ask a question. And it's not like that anymore, because now it's just a round table. You get the same you get the same 2 or 3 people asking all the questions. At least it's edited that way. You don't get opening statements anymore from the players. You don't get closing statements anymore from the players. And I think a lot of this roundtable talk and a lot of this jury format is leading to all the 7-1 votes, which is a problem. Go back, look. We're already seeing, and we'll get to it, we're already seeing possibly a small step to going back to, the way we're used to things, with maybe the auction returning next season.
Don't give me hope. Give me hope.
Let's bring back a lot of other changes also. But yeah, we'll get into that in a few minutes. But yeah, I thought that Jam Jam and Carolyn both did, I think Jam Jam was great with some of his answers. The thing that he was talking about with the eye twitch, or the eye twinkle, I think he called it. Yeah, that was great, right? That was the type of thing I wish I heard him talk about in confessionals. and not just the final tribal council, but him talking about how he knew people was lying. If your eye twinkled when you talked about, your people back home and then didn't do it the same way, then I knew you were lying or whatever. The way he said it was just, it was such a good answer. And once he had that answer, I was like 0% chance he loses the game. 0% chance. It was such a good answer. I thought that it was a little bit odd the way that Heidi attacked the final tribal council. And this is why it kind of sucks that she got, honestly, I don't think she deserved to get a vote, but like, I just like, she seemed so unaware at final tribal council. It was like, well, I thought, the way I saw it, Carson was the major. She kept saying Carson was like the huge brains behind the operation. And I was like, even if like the rest of the jury saw it, that, he played a major role, which he did, it was just like a kind of distasteful way to go about the final tribal council. That being said, there's also part of me that's like, I like that she was doing that because this final tribal council was just so nice. Everyone was being so nice. I was like, we needed some kind of conflict going on at tribal council. So I thought that it was incredibly like not self-aware of her to say that, but also like, it was the conflict that this final tribal didn't have. So I think that, one of the things, there's a whole huge conversation to be had about this. Is it the people that are getting casted that are too nice? Is it the way that the jury is being formatted that leads to this type of nice tribal council? Is it the fact that, everybody's basically hitting off each other and, asking groupthink questions rather than just each individual question? Yeah, there's a ton of things that are playing into this. Ultimately, I just thought it was not the most not the most exciting tribal council, I would say. And it's funny because I literally texted my brother as I was watching the finale. I said, wow, I'm really, really excited for Jam Jam and Carolyn to argue against each other at this final tribal council. Like, theoretically, after watching that entire season, you would think that is exactly what we wanted. Like, wow, this is the final showdown between Jam Jam and Carolyn. Two players that nonstop talk are going to get to argue against each other to see who wins the game. And it was just like, it fell short. We did not get a lot from like, I don't want to say we didn't get a lot, but it just seemed like something was missing. Something was not there. UNC Andre in the comments here says, the finalists all had decent performances. It's that the juries are less interesting, less fiery, and less swayable. I think that's a perfect one-liner to basically sum up my thoughts.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's a combination of many things. I think it's a combination of the cast itself, and granted, I think the cast. I mean, we can get into this when we recap the season, but yeah, it could be on the cast. It could be on the final tribal formats, the questions. I really feel like they have to go back to the old formats. I know Jeff on his podcast has talked about the format and why he likes it for certain reasons. But again, we have to really see, okay, we need more moments, more memorable moments. The finales are just getting a bit samey, honestly. I mean, even, and I feel bad because even Heidi giving up her necklace, I got me excited for like 2 seconds. And I'm like, whatever. It didn't land the same as the other decision, and there just was not a lot of shocking things left. So I really feel like that did play a factor in why this tribal council felt a little, stale in terms of the finale. But yeah, no, I mean, back to what you were saying about Heidi, I feel like she did everything she could. I think she realized that Carolyn was probably not going to get votes, so she did everything she could to take credit away from Jam Jam, so they would give credit to her and say, well, look, guys, don't give Jam Jam credit because it was all Carson. And unfortunately for her, Carson is kind of backing his former Tikas and saying, no, you have to give Jam Jam credits. Everybody at Ponderosa was like, we're going to vote for Carson. And we want to give credit to Tikas for kind of running the merge. They went into the merge down 3, 4, 5 or whatever it was, and they made it to the final 4 together. So you have to give them a lot of credit for playing the middle and playing the middle well. And yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point where Jam Jam talks about, the emotional aspect and using those to see people's body language and learn their tells. He did a great job there. And then even his first answer when he's saying how, like, I was perceived as cheerful and goofy, but I was making a lot of moves with Carson and we were running the game. And Heidi's like, well, don't you think that Soka kind of helped you out? He's like, no, it's the opposite way around. Like, we helped you take out Ratu. We were in the middle. We were never loyal to you. We went back and forth, and you actually kind of needed us. And I think he did a great job at defending his game there and really kind of owning it. early on. I think you're muted, Dylan.
It's my bad. I muted when I was coughing or something. But I was gonna say, I think Jam Jam did do a really good job. It was just like the fiery aspect of Final Tribal Council was missing in this. So yeah, it's not to take away from Jam Jam's Final Tribal Council performance, because I do think he had a lot of really good answers. Like when you said, when he addressed the whole Soka thing, that was great. It was just, I'll bring back the old format. That's all I'll say to end this, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just say back to Carolyn, like I agree with you. Just viewing their performances again, I do feel like Carolyn could have done more to explain her game beyond the emotions. Like, for example, when she was explaining how I think the thing that she did really well, and it was funny because Carson was kind of being like a mom in the audience, like kind of trying to coach her. It was kind of funny, Carolyn says she saw Carson as her son out there, but in that final tribal, Carson was kind of being like a mom to Carolyn, trying to like coach her on like what to say in the background. But I will say I liked how she tried to say to Danny or to Carson or whatever, like, well, I used my idol on Carson even though it wasn't needed because I could trust Carson, but I couldn't trust that Lauren and Jamie were voting with us. So I think she did a good job there. But I really wanted to hear her explain more about her reads. Like, I played the idol on Carson because I knew something wasn't right or whatever. So
yeah,
I think she could have done more there to explain her game. But again, I think just Jam Jam's performance was really good, and Heidi tried her best. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, that answer was very good. Because Jam Jam tried to take credit away from her, like, oh, you didn't need to play the idol, and she was like, well, I did because I didn't trust Jamie and Lauren. So I thought that was a good answer. But yeah, maybe. Oh, and then we have the after show to touch on real quick. Okay.
Wow.
Speaking of things we got to go back to the old of. Bring back the live reunion. But to touch on a few things that happened in the after show, you had the whole fake idol reveal, which I thought that was funny, but and then like the Franny Matt Showman segment. But I'm like seeing it. What is this like? It's literally like 5 days after Franny got voted out. Like, wouldn't you like to see that? Like, basically a year after it happens.
Yeah, I will say, but before we get to the preview for 45, and then we get into everything else that we're going to discuss with questions and looking ahead. I agree. My quick rant is that this after show format is terrible. I do have confidence though, Dylan, that it will change for two reasons. One is because Jeff said on his podcast, because he was asked, or maybe it was in just like a regular like Mike Bloom interview, but he was asked about, now that COVID is over, can we go back to the live show formats? And Jeff said, like, long story short, he goes, well, I like the after show because I get the raw emotions in them right after the game. But I will say having the audience is a lot of fun and getting to check in with the whole cast. So maybe he said, and I quote, he said, maybe in the future we'll have a mix of the two, or maybe we'll see it. He didn't say like we'll go back to the old format, but he said maybe we'll see a mix of the two. So maybe by 47 or whatever, Jeff will be like, okay, I want to do like a quick 30-minute after show at the finale, but then kind of like some of these like reality shows do on like Netflix or whatever, maybe like a few days later or next week, we'll have like a live reunion for you to watch. Like maybe they'll do both, which is fine. But the other reason, Dylan, why I feel like they might change is because a lot of players are now speaking out against the after show. Like Carolyn said it, Cassidy said it. I think Deshaun or Xander, everyone that got second or third has been like, it's so emotionally hard for me to find out that I just lost the game and I'm just so exhausted and drained. And now I'm getting like asked about, you didn't win. Why do you think that was? Like, they would rather have a day or two to just breathe and relax and then have this after show. So I think whether we see a mix of the two going forward or whether the after show comes like 2 days later in the game, I feel like we're going to see a shift at some point because both the audience and the players are now kind of speaking out against it.
Yeah, I think it changes. Unfortunately, they already filmed 45. So I'm going to guess that 45 has the same thing. But hopefully by, it's funny because the way the filming schedule is, it's like players will speak out and people will, fans will speak out. And then it takes like 4 seasons for everything to come into effect because, for example, like a lot of the changes that we want to see that we're speaking right now probably will not be into effect if it gets put into effect until like season 47 or 48, because that films next year. Whereas 46 is filming right now, probably, and 45
Yeah.
already filmed.
They,
So
I
it's
think,
like,
I think they just flew out for 46 like this week.
yeah. So it's like, it takes a while for this to all get put into effect, and then we'll complain about the same thing the next season, and then we'll be like, oh, it will finally change. It's like after, during COVID, people were saying bring back the auction, and then 45 it gets possibly put into place.
Ooh.
And we could talk about the preview of 45 after we just spoke about this whole what's it called? This whole like nice season or nice tribal council, and we need more villains and like everything we were saying like that. I believe there was, I don't know the person's name. I believe there was somebody in the 45 preview that said something along the lines of like, I forget what the exact quote was, but it was something like, I don't necessarily enjoy being a villain, but like I like to like take advantage of other people or something like that. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll have a villain next season, hopefully. But
yeah, I mean, look, what I'll say about the 45 cast, and by the way, if you saw it, Bruce is back. So very happy for Bruce. He deserves his second chance, considering he didn't even make it like 12 hours into the game. So I really am happy to see him back. Hopefully he does well. And like you said, Dylan, the auction was teased for like half a second at the end of the preview. So if Jeff brings back the auction, I will take back half of the things I've said, because the auction coming back after 14 seasons would be incredible. But yeah, no, the only thing that I will say about the 45 cast, even though if you look on Inside Survivor, you can see them and we saw them in the preview, I'm a little worried only because it looks like another group of super fans, and I really want to see more characters. Like Jam and Carolyn kind of carried the season, so I really want to see more characters, and they look very young. Like I think if you look at the ages, it might be, don't quote me, if you do the average age out of 44 seasons, this might be top or bottom, however you phrase it, top 5 youngest casts. So it's very young, minus Bruce. So I hope that doesn't mean that it's going to be very game body, but I guess we'll see. But obviously 90-minute episodes means that we have potential for things to come back, things to change. So I guess we'll see. So
yeah, I just found the quote. So Davey was tweeting about how he thought that everything was too nice. Davey from season 37. Yeah. He says, he tweeted, quote, the guy said something like, quote, big fan of villains, not a bully, but an opportunist. And then Davey says he put it into words the way I couldn't. I'm a fan. So yeah, hopefully we get some villains next season, maybe. Because I don't really think this season had a villain at all. But yeah, maybe before we hit questions here, we can kind of just bring everything together.
Sure.
And say, what do we want to change? Yeah, it was the guy with the afro, I believe, as Jay says in the comments. But if we want to tie everything together here, and just say, what do we think needs to change in Survivor going forward, from what season 44, 43, 42, and 41 had? So we'll start with you, Ryan.
I mean, look, I could say what I want to change, but based on what I know about 45, I know what's not going to change yet. So it's almost me saying, what do I hope changes for 46? But the main thing for me, and we can get into a whole vets versus newbies thing, which I think we'll see vets at some point, is just very simply, whoever you have on the cast, the format has to change. Most importantly, I cannot see 5 seasons in a row of 18 people, 3 tribes, no swaps. And this whole thing that happened earlier in the season with Carson, Jamie, and Josh, that doesn't count. The one person swap each, that doesn't really count. You've got to either do one of these things or a combination of these things. 2 tribes, 16, 18, 20, however many you want to have. 2 tribes, you want to have 3, fine. You got to have at least 1 swap, maybe 2 swaps. You got to do a combination of those or one of them, because the format itself has to be different. I would say you also could change the casting a little bit to cast more villains or more characters. Doesn't seem like they're going that route, but maybe at some point we'll find another great couple of stars and characters for the season. Those would be my 2 biggest things, Dylan. And then obviously the third thing I would say is bring back more classic things. Change it. The puzzles have to change. So bring different puzzles, different challenges, bring back the auction, all that stuff.
Yeah. So, so if you look at, I think a lot of your points are valid for sure. I agree with a ton of your points. If you look, Tommy Smokes from Barstool wrote an article like what needs to change about Survivor going forward, and he basically had a ton of your points in his article. So it's, if anyone wants to read that, I think it's a good read, and I think it echoes a lot of what we've been talking about on this podcast and what you just spoke about. Yeah, I think in terms of casting, a lot of people in the comments here saying that, you know, they're casting too many like game bots or like super fans. I think, you know, you need to have your occasional person or two or three who hasn't seen the show or is out there because, you know, they want to win challenges, or out there because they want an adventure. It's like, you can't just have a bunch of people who are so strategically inclined, if that makes sense. Because otherwise it leads to a little bit of like game bodiness and less like characters and stuff like that. I think that also, you know, ideally 39 days should come back, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I'm not going to completely rule it out, but I'm going to say it's probably unlikely, but it's just so crazy how fast paced the 26-day game is. And I think that, you know, a lot of people are saying that the reason why, I believe it was a former player who tweeted this, and I don't know who it is. Somebody will probably call it out in the comments. I read something that said that the 26-day season is also a reason why the seasons have not been as fiery, because they have less time to like build relationships and get so even more invested into the game than they already are. And like even deepen their relationships to the point where like there's more conflict and stuff like that. So I thought that was like kind of an interesting take, that like, you know, maybe, you know, it's not only the fast paced game, but there's a social aspect of having 39 days as well. That completely changes when you have 26 days. And I, you know, whereas I believe like the Libby in Ghost Island got voted out on like day 26 or something, or day 25. And she finished like 12th place. So I don't know. Yeah, I you know, that's a whole 39 day argument. But not only 39 days, please change some of the challenges so that players cannot 3D print. No disrespect to Carson at all. Like
Carson had said, I think they should change the puzzles too.
Yeah, like you can't if you're gonna cast people who are that smart, you can't be repeating puzzles like that. Because again, at the end of the day, it's hacked, and every time there was a puzzle and a challenge, like the Final 5 challenge, everybody who was watching this, everybody who watched the challenge that even pays slight attention to the show knew Carson was winning the Final 5 challenge because of the puzzle. So, you know, I think they have to change that. Good that they're bringing the auction back. At least it seems good that they're doing 90-day seasons. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to hit on. Oh, and I don't know if we spoke about this, but maybe we touched on it last podcast. I don't exactly remember, but it's confirmed that 46 is not returnees. It's all newbies, which blows my mind, honestly, because we got so many players that are waiting to come back, dating back to the late 30s. But, you know, I really think that, look, when Jeff said that it was a new era, I guess he wasn't kidding. He wanted at least 6 full seasons of new players, or maybe even more, before he had back returnees. If you remember, going all the way back to the beginning of Survivor, there was 7 newbie seasons before All Stars. Maybe he wants to do it the same way again. Maybe he wants to keep the format the same for 7 seasons, and then it'll evolve further from there. I don't really know. I don't really know what the deal is, what the plan is, but I'm hoping that we get returnees for 47 or 48, and it'll
happen at some point. I agree with your point. I think that it almost like this new era, that it's a brand new book or a brand new chapter in a way where, yeah, I think Jeff wanted to build up a pool of newbies before they do a returnee season. Now, whether that's like a second chance for the new era, or whether it's old school versus new school, whatever it is, if you do the math, if Jeff gives us 6 seasons of 18 people, which, and I actually kind of agree now. If we did a returnee season for 45, Dylan, that only would have been basically 18 people times, 4 seasons. That's really only a pool of like 70 people, and most of them would have played together. So I feel like that's kind of tricky. If you do 40 up to 46 of all newbies, it's like 106 new players to pick from. So I feel like that gives you a better pool of like not a lot of pre-existing relationships. So as I've thought about it more, I understand why they're waiting this long, but I agree with you. Once we get to the next like cycle, because we just got through 43, 44, we're now at 45, 46, all newbies. I got to think it's going to happen the next cycle of 47, 48, but I guess we will see. I wanted to ask you one quick question before we get to the comments. I'm sure we have a couple. Now that we finished 44, and I'm sure we'll keep changing our thoughts as the summer goes on, where do you, I mean, not of the whole show, I think it's too hard now, but like of the new era, where do you rank the season out of the 4? Because I feel like for me personally, I still think, honestly, between cast, winner, gameplay, moves, shock value, everything, I still think 42 is my favorite of the new era. I would say 42. I would say 44 comes in second. And then I maybe would put 43 next and then 41. I really feel like 42 and 44 stand out before those other ones. But I would say 42, 44, 43, 41, but you could convince me that 41 goes above 43 based on how it ended.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm in disagreement. So I'm happy that we have conflicting opinions on this. I think I would rank it 43 is my favorite one.
Whoa. Okay. That's a hot take.
Yeah. 43 is my favorite new era season. I'll explain why real quick while we're at it. 43 is the best new era season in my opinion because I think it had the best overall cast and best boot order up until the very end, I guess. But if I think back to, and again, I don't want to like disrespect other players when I say this, but I think I was like thinking back to the final 8 of 43 compared to the final 8 of 44, and I think that overall, like the 43 cast was stronger in my opinion. The issue with, and look, people have different ways that they rank the seasons, right? I think a lot of people are sitting there saying, well, Jam Jam wins 44, Gabler wins 43. That changes a lot of people's opinions, right? It's like, well, Gabler winning was not really a satisfying ending for a lot of people, whereas 44, I think it was an extremely satisfying ending for Jam Jam to win. And we discussed earlier in the podcast, like Jam Jam he's a good winner. Whereas Gabler, I think most people would put in probably in very bottom tier. So, but I think overall, I think that, I like personally was more into 43 than I was 44. I just think it had a stronger final like 8-ish to the point where the end game was very, very exciting. Basically, and I was crushed when Jesse lost fire. That was crushing to me. So like, even though Jesse didn't win the season, for me, it's like, well, we had a player like Jesse go all the way to the Final Four, who I consider to be the best player of the new era, fairly, or at least top 3 without a doubt. But yeah, I consider Jesse to be the best player of the new era so far. So for him to have that, plus you had your Cody's, who I think, was another great character. I liked Cassidy. I liked Owen. Noel, I thought was a great story. So overall 43 was my favorite new era season. Then I'd probably go 42, 44, 41. I think that would be my order. So again, not the popular opinion there, but I'm going to stick to it. I think in terms of the cast, in terms of the moves, I think 43 is the best season, with 42 right behind, and then 44, 41.
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing from you, from myself, from the chat, and then from people on Twitter, most people out of the 4 have 42 as 1 or 2. Just I think 42 had the best all-around cast overall, I think. I think it had the most shock value in terms of some of its votes, especially literally 8, 7, 6, 5 were huge boots back to back to back to back. They were all great. And I think that just overall, granted, Hourglass aside, I think that season had a lot of great things to it. And then I think people put 41 at the bottom. And then obviously people debate whether 44 goes there, 43 goes. But I think with 44, just before we get to the questions, just kind of wrap up this current season, I think my thing is like Carolyn and Jam Jam are probably the best characters in the new era. I think, along with Carson, but I think them two specifically, they carried the season entertainment wise. And I will say, you have other great people like Danny and Lauren, I think was a bit underrated. And you have Franny, of course. I will say some of the other parts of the cast were kind of sleepers. I really feel like, I don't want to say this cast was top heavy, but I feel like you had your stars, and then I think they had to carry the rest of the cast in 44. And I think some people really feel like, even though Jeff was like, this season's amazing, 43 sucked, I love 44. Jeff was like hyping the season up. I don't think it got to the highs that we expected it to get to. But if he was talking about your Carolyns and Jam Jams, I could see where he was coming from there. But
yeah, so I'm looking back right now at the boot order of 42. Very, very good cast, very good season as well.
Like even the pre-mergers, like you had like Daniel being like a mess. You had Jenny who was kind of robbed there. I mean Zach. You had like some 44 all
40,
around.
42,
really
42 was a good pre-merge. That was a good pre-merge, right? Yeah, I'm still gonna stick to my order, but 42 is for sure was a good season, like without a doubt. All right, now I'll pose you this question before we get to questions. And I think this will probably spur some questions as well in the chat and some comments in the chat.
Sure.
So comment in the chat if you want to answer this question that I'm going to ask everybody, which is, let's see, who do you think, which players of the new era, so 41 through 44, if we had to, let's say, name like 10-ish players, and we could do a whole video on this in the off season, but if we had to name like 10-ish players who have the best chance to return from 41 to 44, who you got?
I already started making a list, actually. And I figure in the offseason, we'll actually maybe do a podcast on this. Maybe we can go to like tier list maker and we can actually like map it out with the pictures to make it easier. But I actually did do this. Oh, give me just 2 seconds. I know I have it here somewhere. I literally just did it like a week ago in preparation for this question. Okay, just to get started, I would say in some particular order, people that will get asked back are okay. And I'm going to put Bruce aside because Bruce is obviously guaranteed, so don't count Bruce. Carolyn, I think if you said 10, like 8 to 10 people.
Go do like 5 to 7.
Okay, I would say Carolyn and Jam Jam from the season. Even though Jam Jam's a winner, people asked him in the post game press, "Would you come back?" He's like, "Of course I would come back." So I would say Carolyn and Jam Jam. I would say will come back. Carson, I'll say the Tika 3 are pretty strong locks to come back at some point. Carolyn, Carson, Jam Jam.
Agree.
43, Jesse for sure. I would say either Carla or Cody. I don't know if you get both of them, but I would say Tika 3, Jesse. I'll say Carla. I definitely think Hai and Omer for sure. Maybe Drea, but there was a whole thing that happened at Ponderosa. So I'll say Hai and Omer. So that's 7. And then 41, Ricard and Shan. So that's 9.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page with you for pretty much everybody. I think the Tika 3 are full on locks to return. Jesse lock to return. So those 4 are my top 4 probably.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know top 4 because I think Omer is also a lock. So those I'll consider top 5. And then who else do we got? Yeah, I think Hai has a chance. I would have said Drea. I still feel like Drea could come back. I still feel like she could come back.
If it wasn't for the whole Ponderosa incident, I would say she's a great chance to come back, but I just don't know if they're going to take that into account.
Right. 41, Ricard comes back. Shan, I know there have been, I don't know. I would say possibly Shan as well, but I know that there have been some issues with like, I don't know, people are saying that there was like issues with Twitter. I don't know, whatever. She could come back based on what we saw in the season.
Maybe Xander.
So when I first watched 41, I was like, I think Xander like could be like, they edited him so heavily. So I was like, they really do like him. So I could see him coming back. I also think that Carson being Carson may have taken away Xander's potential spotlight in terms of being the young player who comes back a lot. Carla, I think will come back. I would like to see Cody back. I don't know if it happens. I also think, and this is UNC Andre right here writes Ricard, Shan, Deshaun, Omer, Lindsay, Jesse, Carla, Owen, Carolyn, Carson. I think Owen is a slept on potential returnee.
I agree.
Because I think he had so much potential and just ended up being Charlie Brown. And like honestly, if he comes back, he's almost in that like perfect situation where like I don't necessarily think he's gonna be. I don't necessarily think Owen would be seen as a threat because of how his first game went. But if I were out there, I would see him as threatening because I think he has a lot of potential. So it is.
I just thought of another person from 44 who I completely forgot about that I think actually would not only deserve a second chance, but I think actually could be pretty good. I completely forgot about Matthew. Like for some reason, my medevac mind went to Bruce, and I just completely forgot Matthew's whole shoulder thing. But I feel like, I mean, did you see the looks on their faces when Jeff told them about the fake idol, and they were like, Matthew did that? They were floored. So I feel like Matthew could be a fun, because I even think back to like the first tribal council where he used the shot in the dark, and we're like, why would he just waste that? It's like, no, he deliberately did that so he didn't have to vote in the first tribal council and he could kind of still play the middle. I feel like Matthew, I mean, granted, compared to all those characters that you just listed out, Dylan, I agree with you. I think those are like the top blocks to come back, but like in the next tier below of like a second chance type of thing, I think Matthew could be a good shout.
I'll give you 2 sleepers.
Okay.
I think Jonathan has a chance to come back.
Oh, Jeff, Jeff loves Jonathan.
Yeah, right. I'm just, if you think about the history of Survivor, and like, I mean, Joe was brought back. Joe was better than Jonathan, but Joe was brought back 3 times. Jonathan, I think, will be back. I want to say he's going to be back because Jeff absolutely will love that. Plus, like, look, every season needs its challenge tank, so I think he's a candidate to come back. And then my big sleeper is Tori. So I know
I had Tori.
I was always a huge fan of Tori dating back to pregame press, where I was very impressed with like her answers. But also she got a pretty heavy edit for somebody that went out in pretty early. So I would say sleeper.
Do you think I think Mike, I love Mike from 42 a lot. I mean, I don't know if Mike would want to come back, but I feel like if he does want to come back, I feel like Mike would be great to see again.
I just, the only reason I didn't put him on the list is because he was 58 at the time of the season. So if he were to come back, it would be like he'd be in his 60s, which some people could do it. We've seen players in their 60s play, but it's also like a much bigger ask, I guess, at that point.
Yeah. If we do this exercise, if we do like the full exercise in the off season, I put it into 4 tiers. I was like, they have like a great chance. They have like a decent, I basically said like, second chance is like guaranteed. Second chance, I said great chance, decent chance. And then I have like a list of people that I'm like very little chance.
Right. Yeah, we could do it for like literally every play. Well, that'll be a good video. We'll do a tier maker for every single player of the new era. No chance, whatever. Great chance, decent chance. That's a good video. But
and I think that's why people, and my friend said this too, like that's why people love second chance, not only because we get to vote on it, but because you get people like your Kelly Wentworths, your Kimmy Kappenbergs. You get people who like you would never think in a million years they would come back. And I see people in the chat saying all these pre-merge, there's pre-merge people where it's like, oh, they could be a great like second chance type of story. So
Boston Rob will be back.
Okay. If I had to bet money on something that I know for a fact will happen, like will Carolyn come back? There's a great chance, but it's not guaranteed. I will bet money that Boston Rob is done. Boston Rob, Amber, like they are retired. They are never coming back.
I don't know if I can completely rule it out completely, but I would say heavily unlikely. I wonder, like, how about this? Who is the most, I don't want to get too much into off-season content, but who is the most likely pre-40 player to come back? It could be anybody. Who's the guaranteed will be back out of every single player to ever play?
If they
40
do like
before.
If they do like old, so you're saying like if they do like an old school, new school, if they do just do like a second chance to
any format, any player, who's the most likely to come back? Excluding the new era.
I really feel like it's still got to be Christian. I mean, maybe you could say Damabate, but I feel like Christian not only played a great game, but he just kind of like with Carolyn and Jam Jam, Christian jumped off your TV screen. Like he basically like kind of like Carolyn. Christian has everything you want, honestly. Great TV, great gameplay. I mean, obviously, I would say Suri, but I know Suri's had 4 chances already. So if we're just talking like someone who can come back for another chance in the first 40 seasons, I would say Christian, maybe Dom. I mean, would you say the same thing?
Yeah, I think those are my top 2. Yeah, those are my top 2. I who knows what formats we're gonna get, but I would say that those players still have not even got their second chance yet. So I would say those are my top 2.
Yeah, I mean, because you could argue like people that played in like 36, 37, maybe 39, whatever. But like the people that played in the late 30s, they actually never even had really a chance to come back at all. So
I think Angelina has a pretty strong chance as well.
Angelina, I will still say, even to this day, is still one of the. Granted, she and you can't even put her and Carolyn on the same level because Carolyn, I think, played a way better game. But like Angelina, just from a TV perspective, has to come back. I love Angelina so much.
Devins is a good answer.
Devins
is a good answer. The fact that Jeff Probst said that he was considering having Rick Devens do a voiceover for the what was it called?
No, Dylan, it's worse. He wanted Rick Devens to be the shopkeeper where people could turn in their fire tokens, and he's the shopkeeper.
That's what I mean. But it would be like he'd be the shopkeeper, but like it would be his voice. Like he'd walk up to like the totem pole or whatever.
Yeah.
And he would be like or whatever the trading post or whatever it is. And he would be like and he would be like the voiceover of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd say heavy chance Rick Devens also. Yeah, Jeff loves Rick Devens. So yeah. I'll give him a heavy chance. But yeah, let's get to some questions we got here. If we have much. Scrolling back. I saw a lot of mostly comments rather than questions. So yeah, we spoke about K Bonilla wanted to know if we're over this format. I think we kind of addressed that already. We wanted to switch it up. Don't need to go too much deep into that. Let's see. This is interesting. Is playing like Michelle the best strategic gameplay to win the new era? That's an interesting question from K Bonilla 2.0.
I actually 100% agree. I really feel like in the new era, and you can say this with Jam Jam, Marianne obviously kind of, the show opened up by maybe her possibly annoying people on her tribe, but people still really love Marianne. I really do. And obviously we saw this with Gabler too. All you got to do, I think, in the new era, and I hate to say it, you play a great social game, you make bonds, just like Jam Jam did with Carson and Fire. You do things that go beyond the game and you just really connect with them on a human level. You play a social game. You don't stand out, let other people get cut down, maybe make your move at Final 5 right before the end, and then you win. I really feel like playing like Michelle or like Jam Jam, I really think is the best way to win in the new era. I really do.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that. And I also think that something I hope kind of changes that, because I think there needs to be more of an incentive to like make a big move almost for TV purposes. But in terms of like, if I was going out there and trying to win the game of Survivor in the modern day, then yes, I agree that playing like Michelle is the best strategic gameplay to win in the new era. Playing a very good social game, without putting yourself out there as a threat.
And honestly, like the other thing I will say, Dylan, just to get back to strategy, because obviously some people kind of say social versus strategic or the mix of the two. In the new era, if you're the one that's like Omer, if you're leading the votes, you're going to get targeted as a threat. We see people give a lot of respect to, like, they always say, are you on the right side of the votes? Are you voting correctly? Or like, do you know what's going on? Because the problem with Heidi was that she wasn't always on the right side of the votes. Jam Jam and Carson, and granted, even if they voted like, oh, let's just say they were part of the vote split. If you know what's going to happen, you basically are on the right side of the votes, whether you vote for the right person or not. But like, I think if you play like Michelle or Jam Jam, to K Bonilla's question, if you play a social game, and even if you don't like say, I want Dylan out next vote, like if you just know what's going to happen and you vote the right way and you have the agency, that's all you need. I really feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. You got to know everything that's going on. You got to have the agency. Yeah, I think, I think we're on the right track here. This is a funny question.
Oh my God.
Jay wants to know, by the way, the Matt Chat theory has now been proven 4 out of 4 times in the new era. Do you guys see them switching that for next season? So I did not even know this was a thing until I looked at Reddit the other day, after the finale, that apparently the last 4 seasons, a player who has been asked a question on the mat has been the winner 4 out of the last 4 seasons. To me, that, yeah, clearly they do that so that they introduce you to the player that is going to go all the way to the end. But look, I think that there's been a lot of theories that have been floated out there. I'm going to say that Survivor probably, look, I'm not going to act like Survivor production is completely in the dark to what people on social media are saying. So maybe they run it back another season. Maybe they don't. I'm not going to read too much into it next season because I think they can easily switch that up if they see people catching on to that. But I don't really think there's much to it, honestly.
I would like to think they would switch it up. They might just keep doing it.
We're going to come on the podcast season 45 and be like, all right, guys, the guys who got the mat questions, this person, this person, this person, the three top odds to win. No, I think they'll probably switch it up if they see.
They're always going to show out of the 3, because they usually do 1 per tribe in the new era. They're always going to show you 2. I mean, granted, one of them has been the winner. One of them is always a character or a big person in the season. I think Franny was one of the other people for Matt Chat. I can't remember who was on the Orange Tribe that got Matt Chat, but basically they'll always give you at least 2 people that make the merge and are big characters or the winner or whatever. And then maybe the third person will be like a decoy. So you don't know for sure, but I don't see them changing it up that much unless everyone is just screaming at them like, hey, you got to switch it up.
Which I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are doing that. All right, we have a question right here towards the end. What Cool Saint wants to know, what do you think about the 90-minute episodes for next season? Big fan. More Survivor for us, more things to analyze, and hopefully more showing people social games and more people showing people that get under edited. It's funny because all the confessional stats are going to change for next year. It's like you would think that there's going to be a lot more confessionals given them more TV time. So it's funny because like I saw people talking about like, Jam Jam was one of the most edited players of all time with added like some of the most confessionals ever. Now it's like next season players will have more confessionals just because it's 90 minutes. That's just a funny aspect. Bottom line is I'm excited for it.
I'm excited too. I know some people feel like it's a little too long. Some people are obviously worried that they might do more with advantages and twists, and I'm very scared about that. But I think if I'm going to stay positive, it's a good change for the show, especially because how many times do we come on this podcast and we say like, wait, I had no idea Heidi and Jam Jam were that close, or I had no idea that Jam Jam and Lauren and Jamie were like best friends out there. Like that would explain a lot more about the relationships and why we get to the points that we get to. So if you're going to show more camp life, you're going to show more strategizing, more social bonds, I really do feel like it's a good thing for the show. Granted, they could really do a lot with 30 extra minutes, commercials, but like they could, bring the intro back. They could bring back the auction. They can bring back the previously on. There's a lot of things they can do to bring back some older fans in some ways. So I feel like the world is their oyster. So they really have a lot of opportunities to make this great.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Then we'll end. This is a funny last question that we'll end with. UNC Andre wants to know: are either of you guys applying for a future season of Survivor? What about you, Ryan?
I was really quickly. I was literally having this discussion with a friend yesterday, and he's like, "Why the hell do you not apply? Like, you would love this." And I say, "I love the game. I really do." And maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit. I don't think I would do well with the survival aspect. Just in my mind, the complete lack of food, especially in the new era where you don't even get rice. Like it's one thing for in the past to get rice, at least to get no rice, no food, the elements. Cause like even for a quick side note, Dylan, like I was helping my family move some things for my grandfather this weekend, and it was pouring rain last Saturday. And I did that moving in the pouring rain for 3-4 straight hours. I remember on Samoa, there was a day where there was an episode where it rained for 4 days straight in Samoa, just straight. So I think between the elements and the lack of food, I don't think I could ever do Survivor. Now, if you say to me, "Oh, would you do one of those like those fan Survivors where people do it like for 1 day, 1 or 2 days?" I would maybe do like a fan Survivor, but the real thing, I don't know if I'm built for that.
Yeah, I would say I am not applying. And the reason why is I'm completely content with watching. And it's like Jeff is like, I don't think I could play. Jeff Probst has said, I don't think I could play Survivor. I'm completely content watching it from my couch. I don't think I will be getting off my couch to play Survivor just because it's like, I don't think honestly, like I would do poor with the survival aspect as well. Plus a lot of like knowing as much as we know about the show, I would be crazy paranoid the entire time. And I don't know if I could honestly deal with that for full time, but maybe things will change in the future for me. I don't know.
Also, I hate to say it because I don't want to say that like I don't want to speak for you. I don't want to say that I would be like a game bot, but I don't think I would be very entertaining. I feel like I would want to see more Carolines and Jam Jams than I'd rather see myself. Like I don't think I would be the most entertaining at all.
Look, I think I could give some good confessionals myself, but yeah, I don't know. I can't see myself out there at any point, but maybe it'll change. I would have to. I'll tell you what. I would definitely have to Carson and add like 30 pounds before I go out there. That's guaranteed. So anyway, wanted to thank everybody for listening once again this season. We'll see what the schedule is next season in terms of when we could podcast and when we don't podcast. I don't really know. I would love to go back to doing live stuff right after the episode happens, but I don't know if my work schedule will allow that. So again, that's a play it by ear thing and we'll see, but we will be back for season 45 and hopefully for some off-season podcasts as well. Let us know in the comments if you guys want anything specifically for off-season podcast, comment on the video, let us know. Subscribe on all platforms, and once again, thank you guys for a great season.
Thank you as always. Always fun. Again, I sound like a broken record. I say this to Dylan every season that I love doing the podcast with him, but I especially love seeing people in the comments chatting with us, asking questions. It really feels like a fun thing just to do and just chat with the fellow community of Survivor enthusiasts. So always appreciate the support. Hopefully we'll see you all soon. And for the last time this season, grab your torches and head back to camp.
Good night.